This is a Fox News Alert. We are following a developing story tonight. The Obama administration is asking potential appointees about any associations that might be embarrassing. Throughout the campaign, when questions were raised about people like Jeremiah Wright and Bill Ayers, the Obama campaign frequently responded by saying such questions were nothing more than guilt by association.
What I hope is that the American people will trust that what I believe, my values, my ideals, what I've spoken about in terms of bringing the country together, that all those things override a guilt by association.
Now, this morning, the New York Times reported about a questionnaire being circulated to those seeking presidential appointments. The questionnaire asks for financial disclosures, text of speeches, even the contents of a private diary. But Section 3, called Relationships and Affiliations, caught some interest from us, especially Clause 20, which reads, quote, "Please provide the names and details of any individuals and organizations with which you or your spouse have been associated which might present a conflict of interest with your proposed federal office or have the potential for embarrassment." So has the new Obama administration changed their tune about the importance of associations? Joining us tonight, Fox News contributors Bob Beckel and John Kasich. Now, I know, John, you know, well, you're laughing already about how crazy this is, right? Conservatives going crazy. How dare he ask these questions? Look, a little vetting wouldn't have been bad for John McCain in terms of his vice presidential pick, huh?
Alan, my question is, I guess I can't tell anybody that I know you because I might get disqualified. Huh?
Yeah. In fact, we never met. We never had this conversation, right?
Alan, here the problem with this is we got to have quality people to go into the government. We got massive problems. We see what the problems are in Treasury. We know what the problems are in Defense, in the State Department. Right. I mean, you got to get good people. And what we're doing, Alan, and not just this questionnaire from Obama, but across the board, we're basically disqualifying people unless they're working with Mother Teresa.
Well, wait a minute.
They can't go to work in the government.
You don't know
and we're not
what the
going to get
reaction's
quality
going to be
people
to these questions. Bob Beckel, I mean, you know, a little vetting isn't necessarily a bad thing. Why shouldn't they go out of the way to make sure that something doesn't... because the minute anything untoward would come up, you know, conservatives would be going ballistic about it and blaming Obama personally.
Yeah, I think this is something you said about that, Alan. The vetting is okay, but this is, believe it or not, I'm going to take John's a little bit of John's position on this. You know, we have been in the last 10 or 15 years driving very good people away from office who don't want to be put up with the scrutiny that they get from the press and from interest groups and for others. I think there's a line you have to draw here. I mean, if I looked at that questionnaire, if I had to fill that thing out, now I'm not looking for a job, but I'll tell you one thing, I would never pass those things.
Well, didn't we see, though, during the Clinton administration, people like Lanny Guinier have to step down from a potential appointment because of something to do with someone who worked in her house and whether or not there was that? And that's one of the questions. Did you ever have any illegal immigrant? I mean, isn't this avoiding those kind of problems?
What is the connection between that and who's on your Facebook and what kind of emails you may have sent that may be embarrassing? I can't remember all the emails I sent, but I'll guarantee you some of them were embarrassing.
Well, let's put them up on the screen.
But Alan, listen. Let me give you a personal experience. Yeah. When I hired a 14-year-old girl to watch my dog, I had to pay her Social Security taxes. Okay, right. I did it. Cost me $100 when you add up the accountant and the lawyer fees. Right. You know what? But the problem with it is, I don't want somebody disqualified who can help solve an economic problem because they didn't pay the dog sitter's Social Security. It's become gotcha politics.
You know,
on both
there was
sides,
no Facebook 4 years ago. There was electronic communications were not at the advanced stage they are today. We're living in a new world, a digital world, and that's why you've got to ask these questions. There are instant messages. Look what happened to Mark Foley. You've got to go through this vetting process.
Well, Bob Beckel said it right. There's limits to it, but I mean, to get into who did you know and when, what is your nickname, your alias, whenever you sign on to your, when you sign on to your website. I mean, these things that's way beyond the pale. I'm sure Obama doesn't even support this.
Hey, Beckel, by the way, you were gone at question 8 where it said describe any controversial matters you've been involved in the course of your career. That's it. You're done.
Yeah, well, then that one goes to the heading is I know Sean Hannity very well, and that would have been it.
Oh, right, a stake in my heart.
Seriously, I mean, seriously, think about that. If I wanted to be, which I don't, but if I wanted to be in an Obama administration, I have plenty of experience. I've been in government at very high levels before, but I would bet you that my association with you or my association, in fact, I'm a recovering alcoholic. I mean, those are the things that, I mean, who makes the judgments of what's in it? Well, this is my real problem.
I agree with you.
Who decides what embarrassment means? And it says what would be embarrassing to the president-elect. who makes that judgment.
But now,
and whoever does it is a human being who ought to be very careful about what they determine to be embarrassing.
Well, but, you know, John, there's a little irony here for me, and that is, let's see, let's go to 20 here. You know, provide the names and details of individuals and organizations with which you and your spouse have been associated that might present a conflict of interest. I thought Tony Resco, for your proposed federal office or potential embarrassment. Wright, Ayers, Flager, Million Man March. I'm figuring Obama can't pass his own test. I figure, you know, look at his radical association. So we've been told for 2 years, John, these things don't matter. But it matters if they want to hire you? Come on. What hypocrisy.
No, it's not a little irony. It's a lot of irony. And, Sean, this is just patently absurd. Of course you want to find out if somebody has a conflict. Of course you don't want somebody to get in there and try to enrich themselves. But this is so far beyond the pale. And it is ironic that this administration that fought off that would impose this test.
John, this is reflecting what we've seen. First of all, it's reflecting Obama's own experience, the kind of hell he went through on those things.
Yeah.
And in the last 5 or 10 or 15 years, as I said, a lot of people, before Obama was even on the scene, were getting picked on for things that were minuscule and would not have hurt their
wait, Bob,
competence in
let's not
office.
forget here. This guy admitted to using cocaine. It was a big deal in '92 when Bill Clinton said, I tried it, but I didn't inhale. You know, that was a big deal. Now all of a sudden he could admit to the use of hard drugs, and there were no questions in the campaign, just like I would argue all the radical associates that I mentioned. And by the way, I understand Ayers, you know, Wright, Flager, Farrakhan, Bernardine Dorn, and now Ayers will speak on Good Morning America tomorrow morning with Chris Cuomo. Now they're all coming out and talking when they've been quiet now for the better part of a year while the media ignores them.
You're not suggesting that somebody who happens to had used cocaine or hard drugs in the previous time in their lives and don't anymore. I mean, there's 15 million people that would be ruled out of contention.
Let me make my point.
No,
I'm saying that the bar has shifted. You know, and look, if somebody's going to give an explanation, but he wasn't even asked about it. It used to be a question that we'd always ask the candidates, what's your past drug use, for example. Look, I would argue, and I know you hate this, Bob, but I would argue that Barack Obama, were he not elected president, based on these issues that I brought up, that I don't think he could get a basic security clearance. I don't think he could work for the CIA. I don't think he could work for the FBI, Bob.
Well, look, he's going to get those clearances, so obviously they think he can. One of the things about this is if you put this out on the table and it's something you can't be blackmailed over, it oughtn't be something that keeps you out of government. What worries me is who are the people between Barack Obama and the acceptance procedures that are going to make these decisions?
Are you not? That's fair. It's just like with the censorship doctrine. Who's going to decide? You know, what's a conservative thought or a liberal thought on the radio? But wait a minute. So you're saying that Obama has no responsibility, bears no responsibility for this questionnaire?
No, he bears responsibility for it, I'm sure, from his own experience, some of which I think, frankly, came from his interaction with you.
He ought to withdraw this, Bob.
But listen, I've looked at some of these people who are going to be transition people, and believe me, I asked to party with some of these people. If they could pass through and become transition people, a lot of people could.
Bob, really, what Obama should do is withdraw this and restore some sanity to this. Because, you know, Sean's right. I mean, you know, here he is saying it doesn't matter, but on the other hand, we've got a test here that is beyond the pale. He should withdraw it, restore sanity, and don't even add more restrictions to getting quality people to get into government and help us to fix this country.
All right, now I got to say one thing, that my associations with Alan would disqualify me.
I'm sorry I've limited you in the way that I have.
I'll tell you, Alan is in much more trouble.
Alan, if I'm ever president,
thanks a lot, Beckel.
If I'm ever president, you can come into my administration.
I really would.
Beckel, I defend
wouldn't
you.
Hide from it.
I defend you to all my conservative friends. I want you to know I stick up for you. I say you're a nice guy.
And I stick up for you too. So, but that doesn't mean they'd let me in government.
Well, I wouldn't let you in government. I mean,
I want to say, here's the person who's going to send the letter of recommendation, Sean Hannity. How far do you think in that process?
I think you know, listen, this is a bipartisan era. We've been told the world's changed.
I would love to end this segment.